And with me now is tech analyst Carmi Levy. Good evening, Carmi. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for being here.
Good to be with you.
Now, I want to ask first, what could have caused this outage, do you think?
Well, I mean, the fact that the bank isn't sharing anything is a question that we probably should address at some point because I would hope that they'd be a little more transparent. But, in cases like this, it can often be a software update gone bad. It could be a piece of hardware in one of their data centers that failed. It could be a piece of the network that they rely on that had an outage and then it cascaded to a much larger scale. So they're usually and in some cases, of course, it can also be a cyber attack, and that's the worst case scenario. We just don't know at this point, in much the same way that 5 weeks ago when this happened as well, all the company said was it was a technical issue. We never really did learn what the root cause was or what they did to bring service back. And that's a problem. If you are a customer of this bank and your financial dealings rely on proper operation of that technology, the least you would expect is for them to be a little bit more forthcoming about what's going on beneath the surface, a little bit more detail, because most companies, they're in this day and age, they will communicate more so that stakeholders know what's going on. That's not happening here.
Yes, and an outage of any kind is troubling, really. But this being a bank, what makes this more troubling and what should be done?
Well, I mean, if you can't buy a bus ticket when the transit system goes down, you can't buy a bus ticket. But with banking, there's so many more things that rely on it. So what if your rent or mortgage payment depends on it and you can't get the money into your account? Now that payment defaults, you're stuck with an additional bill and you have to sort of deal with the fallout. So the rippling impact of financial institution outages compared to outages at other kinds of organizations are much worse. And there's a lot more sensitivity to customers. And also because it's a very heavily regulated industry, you would expect that the government would want to take a closer look at it as well. So it's bad for everyone, but especially for customers. And you never want to see your bank have a day like Scotiabank just had today.
Right, and this kind of thing seems to be happening more and more. Is that whose fault is it? What needs to be done? Should there be more responsibility taken on the part of, say, these banks or these big companies that this is happening with?
Absolutely. Having spent a large chunk of my IT career working in financial services, I've been in the war rooms when there have been incidents like this. And I can tell you the one word that always gets floated around in cases like this is accountability. Where does that accountability lie? Who's going to own this thing and what are they going to do to resolve it? And what are we going to learn from this experience so that it doesn't happen again, or we minimize the potential for it to happen again, or the impact of it if it does? And so we're not hearing a whole lot now, and that is problematic. And I think it's important so that Scotiabank, as well as other financial institutions, look at this as a warning that you've got to make sure that you're investing enough in your IT operations, that you're hiring enough of the right people, that you're training them, compensating them well, that you're buying the right technology, wrapping it all in the right processes, and that as issues like this become known, that you are documenting the fixes and carrying those learnings forward, and that you're communicating what those learnings are to everyone who needs to be communicated with. We're not seeing a whole lot of that now, and I would expect there are a lot of late nights that are happening. The long weekend for a lot of Scotiabank employees probably canceled at this point, and for good reason.
How do they go about convincing customers that this isn't something that's going to happen again? They're not going to have problems on payday after, two times this has happened just, in a summer.
They convince them by being open and honest and transparent. And so by fessing up to what happened, of course, you can't share too much because there are competitive reasons, there are privacy reasons. I think we all understand that. But you can share at a high level that it was, say, a software problem. And this is what happens. This is what we know the impact was. And these are the steps that we're taking to resolve this particular issue and ensure that it doesn't happen again next time. And so, like, we've seen outages before, and we've seen companies communicate those proper steps so that everyone who continues to deal with them knows, okay, I have confidence staying in their orbit going forward. I'm not going to move banks. I'm not going to shift to a competitor. Because in the absence of that, how confident can we be as customers knowing that this isn't going to happen again? This is the time for Scotiabank to really amp up its communication. Over communicate if you have to. It's way better than under communicating.
All right, that is our time. We'll have to leave it there. Carmi, thank you. As always, great chatting with you.
Appreciate it, Renee. Thanks.
That's Carmi Levy, tech analyst.